Hello, my name is Nathan, and today I'm going to go over how we protect our books at the library. Specifically, I'm going to cover two different types of covers. So I'm going to go over a contact paper cover and a hard plastic protector cover. The two different types of covers that we most frequently use here at the library. So there's a few things that you need to get in order to get started with your book covers. First, you need to have whatever type of cover that you're using, be it the contact paper or the hard plastic. The brand that we use is Capco. I'll put a link down in the descriptions of the YouTube videos that you can go and buy those on Amazon if you wanted to try this at home. The other thing is you need some sort of a type of squeegee. These are book squeegees specifically made for covering, but you can also use like the Bondo type squeegees that you can pick up at the hardware store that they use to spread Bondo. Something like this thing, we call these bones here at the library, but these will certainly help you out a little bit. Pair of scissors, and we use either easy bind tape or strapping tape, depending on the type of cover that we are covering. So let's get started. The first type of cover that I'm going to go over with you today is our hard plastic cover. These are the ones that get put on any of our fiction that's not hardcover. So paperback fiction, other than the mass market paperback, so standard trade paperback fiction. We use two different covers. Now you want to make sure that you size the cover as close to the book as you can. They sell different sizes of these things. Some of them are huge, some of them are really tiny. So get one that's close to what you have. And I usually like to batch these out in like 6 or 8, depending on how busy we are at the library. And I actually use the shear to trim them down. Now, some of our librarians will actually stick these on there and go back with their scissors and trim around the book. I don't like to do that. It's just not my thing, but if that ends up being your thing, more power to you. So what I like to do is I start with the book, or with the back of the book. I always start at the back. And I set this on the cover, and I mark it. I mark where the edge with the pages is, and I mark where the length of the book falls. Now, if I've got 6 or 7 of these, 8 that I'm doing, I'll actually write a note on here so I know which one it is. I'm just doing one today, so I'm not going to do that for both the front and the back cover. But I start on the back cover, and I take it to my paper shear. If I have 6 or 8 of these, I'll do all this at once. I like the paper shear because I'm certain that I can get right angles, and it gives me a nice smooth cut. Sometimes if you're trimming with scissors, it can be a little jagged. So I like to use the shear. Then I peel this little tab that's right on the back here, toss that to the side, and then I like to fold over a corner of the next tab. That makes it easier for me to get at when it's underneath the cover. So we want to line up that front edge on the front of the book. And then very carefully, we're looking at this back edge too. And if you look closely, you'll see that I stayed about 1/4 of an inch away from that spine. You'll see this little line right here. I'm just past that. This little line is where the book wants to fold open naturally. So I'm missing that. And what we do is we take our little book squeegee and we squeegee that little 3/4 of an inch tab down. Then I grab that tab that I folded under and I pull it all the way across so that I got something all the way across, and I keep my hand under here so that it keeps a little bit of a lift on that cover. And then I squeegee it down, and I work from that edge back to the spine. And by doing that, I'm working any air bubbles that might get behind this cover toward the edge. All right, so once we have that back covered, I move on to the front. And I treat that the same way. There's a little gap here. This is hard plastic, and this is a soft plastic that covers the spine, allows the spine to flex. So we want that, that little gap to be clear of where that book naturally opens, right? So I position it there, and then I mark it just like I did the front cover. So I mark it, and I take it to my shear. I shear it down. So now it's sized. So on the front cover, we don't have that little peely tab that we did on the back, so we have to make our own. All right, so we make our own. Just fold it over, just like that. That way you can grab it. And when I'm working toward the back, I'm working toward the spine. So I line up those front corners, and then I always check back here on these back corners to make sure that I've got it aligned properly. Once I've got it aligned, I squeegee that down, and then we work it toward the spine, working any air bubbles that might get in there back toward that area there. Okay, so there we have it. We've got that all the way back to the spine. Sometimes around our stickers, it's a little bit more difficult because they are proud of the cover, so get a little bit more difficult. Now when it comes to the spine, we have this little flap here to deal with. People with smaller hands find this a little bit more difficult, but the concept is the same. We're going to work this spine right around to the back cover. And in order to do that, we pop this back, and you see how it wants to lift that little backing up. That's perfect. We let it do that, and then when I do that, you can actually see right here how the backing kind of goes. So backing's over. Now, what I like to do is I take my thumbs right here, and I press, and I work from the center to the edge. Just press from the center to the edge. And I'm feeling for any air bubbles that are there, and I'm trying to work those out to the edge or up toward the spine so that it's out. And then once I have that, I roll my thumbs over that spine, right up through the center of the spine, right there. And then I work it out kind of at a 45-degree angle away from the spine, or away from that cover, toward the back, working my way across the spine. That makes it so I don't have any bubbles in there. And then I do the same thing again. I roll that front cover toward the back, and then I'm working out at 45-degree angles, maybe an inch at a time. And once I get to that point, I can then use my squeegee and finish squeegeeing it across the back. And I can run that squeegee up the spine, across the front, that's a nicely covered book. And that's what we're looking for. Something that doesn't have air bubbles in it, something that's going to last for a long time. So we've got the cover on the book. Now we want to protect where it gets the most wear and tear. So this first page in a book and the last page in a book, or on a paperback book, they're called fly sheets. So a fly sheet wraps around this book block. It goes all the way from the front to across the back and to the back cover. It helps give the whole thing cohesion. And so the area where it most likely fails is between that book block and the fly sheet. So we use this product, which is Easy Bind tape, and we're going to use it to protect that. So I pull out a little bit, just shy of the length of the book. I'm going to do one for the front cover and one for the back cover. Just like that. Then this Easy Bind has a little center strip that goes down. We want to peel that center strip off. We're going to use that to align itself in the spine of the book. So we just peel that off, and you're left with, a sticky center part. So then I put it over my book squeegee. Some people like to use these bones because they're a little longer. I find that this is a little too big of a curve to get down in that spine. So I use the little squeegees. They're a little pointier. And then we open up, not between the cover and the fly sheet. We want to go between the fly sheet and the book block. And the reason for that is we can if we need to do another one of these Easy Binds, we can do that between the cover and the fly sheet. But it's generally easier to repair that it's easier to repair it for one. We certainly want to prevent any damage, but it usually doesn't get damaged there. So we center it, and then on both pages, we stick that down. So let's do the back cover. We have the same thing. We're going to fold that Easy Bind. We're going to pull that center strip, stick it out over our squeegee, get in between that fly sheet and that book block, and we're going to stick it right in that spine. Now, if you get it off a little bit, you can use your judgment with that, but as long as it only is that little center strip, you can usually pull it off and readjust it. But once you peel off these longer strips for any individual side and go to stick those down, don't try peeling it off. You'll rip the pages. So we smooth that out. If you have a little wrinkle right there or something, don't try to peel it off. It will tear. So just try to smooth it out the best you can. All right. So you see how I'm keeping the adhesive from sticking to the page. My finger and thumb are in the way. I do that just so I can get situated, and then we stick it down, smooth it out. Pretty simple. This book is now ready to hit our shelves. All right. Now we're going to move on to the contact paper. So our paperback nonfiction gets contact paper. So this book here, Sharing Books, Talking Science, we're going to cover that with contact paper. So Capco's contact paper is really cool because it has this grid on it. So we can measure out the book and kind of get straighter lines. You can use other book covering products, but some of them don't have that grid, so it makes it a little more difficult. So what I'm looking for here is I typically come up 2 points on the grid plus the edge, and I come over 2 full squares on the grid plus a little bit. Like this one looks like somebody didn't necessarily cut it very straight, so that's fine. And then we want that about the same distance on the bottom we want on the top. So we're going to mark that. That's how tall we want it. Now, how long we want it is going to depend on the thickness of the book and the size of the cover. So I'd like to position it on the on the contact paper, and then I roll it over so that it covers the spine, and then set it down. And then I gauge my distance over here. So we've got our distance. That's how far we're going. And this is how tall we're going. All right. So this stuff right here, we'll use this contact paper to do all sorts of things. So like if a children's book gets a little tear in a page or something, this stuff is clear and it's acid-free. We'll use that to repair those little tears and things like that. So we keep our scraps around and use them for different things. This one's actually big enough that it might be able to be used for a small covered nonfiction book. All right. So once we have our thing cut, I like to position my book, and then I just make a little mark where the corner of that spine meets, just so I know when to stop my peel. Because we're going to peel this back. This is easier if you have longer fingernails. All right. Now we're going. So now I just peel that back, and you can kind of faintly see my mark under there. There's my mark. So I peel it back to there, and then lining it up on the grid that I can see through the paper backing, I just smooth it out like that. That gives me a nice straight line to work with. Then what we do is we take the back cover first, and I center it top to bottom in my sheet of contact paper, and I just gently pull it over until I feel that contact paper grip on the back cover. And then I'm going, if you notice, I've got the book bent a little bit here. You see this bend? Okay, that's really important. I'm going to stick down that first starting point, and then I flip it over. Okay, so I've got about an inch of it stuck down. This is where I take my squeegee and I start to squeegee that inch. If you're working too much of this at a time, you're going to get big air pockets back there, and we don't want those big air pockets back there. So we work it about an inch at a time, and we just slowly go from the spine out toward the edge. And this stuff, it's sticky, but it's not too sticky. So if it happens to fall down there, I'll just peel it back. You're not going to hurt the cover of the book. That's what's great about this stuff. Got a little bubble right there. I'll peel it back to that bubble. There we go. We just work it out to the edge. Oh, another preventable bubble right there. Okay. Now, you're never going to get, I shouldn't say never, you're not going to get the cover completely bubble-free very frequently without the use of a heat gun or something like that. But what we're really doing is we're protecting this book so that it can be used time and time over again. We can always peel this cover off and replace it if we need to. All right. Couple down in there. We can muscle those out a little bit. Okay, so now we've got that edge, or we've got that side done. we're going to take and we cut our corners. That's right, we're cutting corners. And I save these corner pieces, so I just stick those off to the side. Cutting those at a 45-degree angle, and you'll see why here in just a moment. I also take a look at where that break line is on the cover, and I cut it a little bit of an angle back toward that break line, right here towards the spine. Okay? Now, what I like to do is I like to get these little sticky tabs out of the way before I move to the front because I don't want to have to deal with the front cover sticking to the back. So I pull that open. I make sure that there's no pages there. You want this stuck to the cover. So, and we fold those little tabs right over. Then we just work them right down to the back inner side of the cover with our squeegee. Okay, now we don't have to worry about the front sticking to the back when we roll around to the front, which is what we're going to do now. So, just like with the hard plastic covers, I'm going to take my thumbs and I'm going to roll this contact paper over the spine. So I start in the center and I work my way out to the edge. And I'm rolling it from that back cover toward the front and pressing down. So I have the spine, and then I'm going to do the same thing, rolling around to the front. Peel about 1 inch of that back, and I'll roll that around using my thumb or finger so that I'm sure it gets good and stuck. Now that I'm sure it's stuck, I take the squeegee and I kind of squeegee that out again. There we go. Then pull out 1 inch, 1.5 inches of the cover. Squeegee this down. So we start on the back first because that back, we have to peel the whole thing. So when you have to peel the whole thing, you're more likely to get bubbles. But when you're working on this front, you get to peel it a little bit at a time, so you get fewer bubbles. Makes for a better cover. And the front is really, I mean, that's the face of the book, let's be honest. So got a couple bubbles in there. Peel them back to it. Squeegee it out. There we go. All right, so same thing that we did on the back. We're going to cut the corners. Set those aside. Now this excess here, you want to make sure that there's enough of that when you roll it around the book and stick it to the inside cover that it actually stays. So what we do, we roll it around the cover, get our squeegee, squeegee it on out. Got to do our little cuts at the spine. And then we take and do the same thing. Roll those right on around. Squeegee them out. And then we're left with these little danglers, right? No one wants a dangler on there. So So what we do is we take and we put our scissors right along the top of that book block, and we cut right around there and trim those guys off. If you notice, I put the flat of my scissors against that book block, and then I do my trim. All right, so once we've got that done, I like to do one more squeegee across the edges here, make sure they're good and flat. And then we take these corners that we trimmed off, and we open up that inside back cover, and they go right here to help protect that corner. Helps to make sure that those edges don't come and peel back up. And the same thing for the front cover. And we're almost done. The next thing we do is we take the strapping tape, and we want to make sure that this inner corner right here isn't peeling back up and peeling off. The book block, we can protect that too, but typically nonfiction books don't circulate as much as fiction books. So we tend to have fewer issues here, so we just save the easy bind for our fiction books. And we use this strapping tape on our nonfiction. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And these pieces are only like 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. So just like we did with the easy bind, you just find the middle of that tape, and we're going to wrap it around our little squeegee there. Okay, just like that. And we're going to open up that book, and we're going to put it right in where that fly sheet meets the cover, and we're going to tape it down to the fly sheet and tape it down to the cover, just like that. We're going to do the same thing at the top. And then top and bottom of the back as well. And then I just do another pass over everything, especially on the spine where we just stuck those tapes. That book is ready to hit our shelves as well. All right, so that's how we cover books here at the library, get them ready to be protected so you can borrow them. Thanks for watching.